and Fox News contributor Doug Schoen, and legendary singer and national spokesman for the 60 Plus Association, my good friend Pat Boone. It's good to have both of you here today.
Thank you.
All right, Doug, you wrote an article recently that seniors could sink President Obama in 2012. So how could they do that?
Well, very simple, Mike. Seniors had gone for George W. Bush by about 5 points in 2004. They went for John McCain by about 7 or 8 points in 2008. But 2 years ago in the midterm elections, they voted plus 21 for the Republicans, and they turned out in bigger numbers than they ever had before. And if that happens again, that could spell doom for President Obama.
We've got a full screen up that shows.
Hallelujah.
We have a full screen that shows this pretty remarkable trend, and that shows that 16% of seniors were voting in 2004, 2008, and then in a non-presidential year, that bumped up to 21%. Now, Pat, you're a national spokesman of a group called 60 Plus. It's kind of a, I guess, an alternative to AARP.
Conservative alternative, yeah.
What are you sensing among senior adults? Why would they change what has been somewhat of a historic vote reliably for Democrats?
Well, for one thing, most polls, I think Doug will attest to this, show that seniors, by a big margin, don't like Obamacare. They're not for it. And 60 Plus, with our 7.2 million supporters in 60 Plus, are determined that they're not going to be saddled with that Obamacare. They're really worried about things like what was called the death panel, and whether that's a proper characterization or not. It is 15 non-elected people appointed by the president who, they're not doctors. They should have some kind of medical knowledge, but they're not doctors, and they will decide what the government wants to pay for and what they don't, and who gets what. And you may not call it a death panel, but seniors are terrifically worried, and we are conducting a campaign to get 10 million new voters, seniors that have not registered and haven't voted, and particularly the swing states. So, Doug, we're expecting and planning on making your prophecy come true.
Well, thank you, Pat. Thank you.
Doug, let me jump in here because Democrats are using, I think, some maybe expected scare tactics. We've seen that ad where a Paul Ryan lookalike pushes a lady off the cliff in a wheelchair, as if you like these Republicans, they're going to just tear up Social Security and Medicare. Is that an effective strategy for the Democrats?
Well, at this point, it is their strategy, because Pat's exactly right. The Obamacare legislation, which is now before the Supreme Court, and the individual mandate are very unpopular with seniors. I think that in and of itself was the single biggest factor why the Democrats lost the midterm election. And, Mike, what the Democrats are doing is using fear of the Ryan plan, which, in my judgment, does go too far to try to get seniors to vote Democratic. Now, the problem with the campaign, and I think why what Pat's doing with the 60 Plus organization's so important, we got to move past scare politics. We've got to talk about how do we preserve programs, protect seniors, protect Medicare, Social Security, but in a way that's rational and fair, not in a way that scares people.
Pat, if Obamacare gets taken away by the Supreme Court, I frankly think that'll probably happen.
I do too.
Does that take that off the table, or is it still a good issue for the Republicans to use?
Because this president is the one who forced it down our throats, and we're not. You know, I think this administration thinks of seniors as some little old ladies and few little old men who don't know what's going on and can just be herded along like sheep, not taking into account we've been there, done that, seen it. And I say we because I came out of the closet a few years ago and acknowledged I am a senior, and
and everybody wishes they were doing as well as you are in those senior years, Pat.
Well, you know, thank God I am, and my wife too. But we're not dumb. We can add, we can subtract. With the death tax, it's called the estate tax, but it's really a tax on death. And we don't think death should be a taxable event. This administration does. They want to raise and elevate the death tax, because that way, though you've saved money, you've built a business, you have a farm or whatever it may be, when one of you has the bad judgment to die, then the government steps in and says, thank you, I'll take half of all of that, thank you. Bing Crosby, it happened to him years ago when his wife, Dixie, died, and he had to sell a lot of his assets to pay the tax on her death. Now, there's something incredibly, terribly wrong. We've worked hard. We've saved money. We've built some kind of a business, or at least something to leave our kids. The government has no right to step in and take half of it because you're not there to defend it anymore. And we're going to have to elect presidents and senators and congressmen who understand this and look out for seniors. That's why 60 Plus is doing so well.
Doug, we have less than a minute, so I'm going to give it to you to tell me if there's a big turnout of seniors, good thing, bad thing for the Democrats this year.
Well, given historical trends, probably a bad thing, Mike. I think really what I hope comes out of this election is a serious concern and a serious discussion of the issues surrounding Obamacare, health care reform, entitlement reform, so the 7.2 million seniors that Pat represents in 60 Plus, and indeed all seniors, have a fair vote and a fair discussion. That's what we need.
Thank you both for being here, Pat Boone, Doug Schoen.
Thank you.
And let me mention this. Pat is marking 50 years in music. He's got a brand new CD out called Pat Boone Sings a Tribute to the Ink Spots. I remember the Ink Spots, and I bet you do too.
Good.
Thank you very much, Pat and Doug.